So we are very excited. You are joining us today for our last Undergraduate Studies Alumni Speaker Series for this homecoming week. And what we have for you today are 4 awesome alumni panelists who are going to be talking with you all today about their experiences as undergraduate students, but also what they are doing now and any tips and tricks they might have. I'm going to give some brief introductions for each one of them, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves also and elaborate more on who they are and the great things that they're doing. So first we have Adrian Othon, who graduated from FSU in April 2021 with a degree in exercise physiology. And during his undergraduate career, he became involved with the FSU community through the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program and the Learning Assistance Program. So Adrian was first a UROP student, then he taught the UROP class for 2 years, and then he became a learning assistant after completing his calculus course. So he ran the gamut as a student here, and so I can't wait for you all to hear more from him. Next, we have Ariana Holden, and Arria is a recent FSU alumna, and she was awarded Bachelor of Science in Anthropology in 2020. And she had a life-changing opportunity to go abroad with the Global Scholars Program. And she was also a Gilman Scholarship recipient and an IDEA grant recipient as well. And she embarked on her journey to Vietnam in the summer of 2019 to intern at a nonprofit to teach English and conduct research on ethnic minority single mothers. So you're going to hear some wonderful things from her as well. Then we have Brianna Whitehead, who is a native of Miami, Florida, and she received her Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences with honors from FSU in 2017. And her undergraduate honors thesis was done in the lab of Dr. Timothy McGraw at the FSU School of Medicine. She was very involved and she took advantage of many activities and programs. She was also in the Global Scholars Program and UROP program as well. So you'll hear a lot of great things from her. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Michelle Sauer, who earned her Bachelor of Arts in History and English Literature from Florida State after graduating with honors in the major in 2015. And while she was at FSU, she served as a FIG and a UROP leader and was heavily involved in undergraduate research. And she was also a Fulbright Summer Institutes and Phi Kappa Phi National Fellowship recipient. So you all are in great company today with these 4. And just to get it started off, we'll have you, Michelle, if you just want to introduce yourself and elaborate any more on your experience at Florida State and where you are now. Did she freeze? We'll go to you, Adrian. How about you start us off?
Yeah, so thank you for introducing all of us, Amy. I appreciate that. So hey everyone, my name is Adrian, and similar to what Amy said, I was a UROP leader. I did the Learning Assistance Program, and now I'm a cancer biology research assistant here at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. So I'm also from Miami, Florida, like Briana. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So just a little bit about me. I applied to the UROP program just kind of coming into undergraduate, knowing that I had to do research because I'm interested in going to medical school, and I ended up falling in love with research. So now I'm just interested in pursuing an MD PhD. I'm still very interested in that medicine part, but through the UROP program and my undergraduate research, I know that's something I want to do kind of for my career.
Go ahead, Brianna.
Okay, so hi, I'm Brianna Whitehead. I'm currently in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a PhD candidate in the molecular biophysics program here at Johns Hopkins. And so my research, I came into FSU, I thought I wanted to go to med school, but then once I started in the UROP program, that all changed. And so I decided to go into research. And so then I did my undergraduate honors thesis in Dr. Timothy McGraw's lab, looking at centrosome and centrosome assemblies and Drosophila melanogaster, or fruit flies. But I didn't know if I wanted to stay in like neuroscience and genetics. So I did a PhD, so a bridge to doctorate program. So I was at Vanderbilt and Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee for about 1.5 years. And there I learned about structural biology, biophysics, as well as microbiology. And so I did quite a few things, but then I decided to go basically into biophysics after applying to different schools and seeing what they offered. And then I ended up here in Baltimore. But yeah, at FSU, I did quite a few things. I was also a Gilman Scholar. So I went to Germany for a while to basically like a German English immersion program. I did Europe for a year. I taught biology for a year, and I was just everywhere. So if you have any questions, you could definitely ask me about them.
Arria?
Yes, thank you, Amy. Hello, everybody. My name is Ariana Holden. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I wanted to shout out and say hello to Alicia and Latica as well. It's really good to see you. I, of course, kind of piggybacking off of what Adrian and Brianna said, I was also part of Europe for my sophomore year. I was a Europe leader for 2 years and Europe leader trainer in my senior year. So I have a lot of different extensions in Europe and research. My research kind of covered a gambit of different things, everything from gender and sexuality to race and ethnicity, and a lot of it had to do with sociological and anthropological work. When I was in Vietnam, of course, as you know, via Global Scholars, I was with Coin for Change, and my research focused on ethnic minority single mothers. And that research, very thankfully, it got published in an undergraduate research journal for Floridian university students. So that was also another highlight of my undergraduate career. Outside of that, I also was a part of the Beyond Borders Jamaica program, as well as traveled to Thailand. So I did a little bit of traveling beyond my Global Scholars experience. And currently, I am a Gilman Alumni Ambassador. So I essentially help individuals with applications. I help them with kind of finding their location and where they want to go. And I also am an AmeriCorps member. No surprise, you see the AmeriCorps merch in my office. I am a AmeriCorps Vista leader. So essentially, I help about 15 other members kind of get acclimated to their sites across Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. So it's a tri-state area. I'm currently in New Hampshire. And yes, that's just a little bit about me. I probably missed a few things, but I'll stop talking.
That's great, Arria. I'm definitely going to miss several more things because I'm reaching back into the abyss of time now. Like Amy mentioned, I graduated in 2015. And like Arria and Brianna said, I was everywhere as well. So I'm Michelle Sauer, missed that part. And I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida, but I currently live in Durham in the United Kingdom, which is directly related to my time at Florida State. So I think the thing that connects all of the panelists here is that we were all involved in some extent in Europe. So I was in the flagship class of Europe, and then I served as a Europe leader later on in my undergraduate career. I was heavily involved in undergraduate research, which is what led me to the United Kingdom to begin with. I was a Fulbright Summer Institute recipient, like Amy mentioned, where I initially came to Durham University and participated in their program in archaeology and medieval history. I then was an IDEA grant recipient, I suppose, but back in the day when it was called URCA. And I came back to the United Kingdom in 2014 to pursue my undergraduate research for my honors thesis, which was on historical memory in Anglo-Norman Durham. And then I returned finally in 2015 for my master's degree in medieval history. After which I completely went off the rails and kind of bounced around the entirety of the globe. I lived in Germany for a while. I was back in Florida at some point. And then I ended up in the United Kingdom permanently, where I work in higher education. So I've just been named the program administrator for the Marshall Scholars Program, which if anybody is involved with the Office of National Fellowships, that is one of the most prestigious national fellowships that you can be a recipient of as a US scholar. I was an intern with the Office of National Fellowships in my senior year at Florida State, and was pretty heavily involved in helping students with that. So I think that's what's led me on my ultimate career trajectory. I also ended up getting a second master's degree from Newcastle University in communications and education. And I think I missed loads of stuff, but I'll stop there and answer questions.
No, you're good. I just did a brief introduction, and then it's funny, I asked you to start, and then I realized we no longer had you for a second, but you're back. So that's great. So all of you were very heavily involved while at your time here at Florida State. And we had some pre-submitted questions, and one that was pre-submitted is somebody wants to know, what are your tips for today's undergraduate students to make the most out of college and really to get involved? What would be your tip to do that? So we could start with you, Arria, if you'd like.
Yes, thank you. I definitely, this is something I grappled with a lot throughout my 4 years because I had to balance the desire to do a lot of different things, but also understand I'm a human being that has different obligations as well as different needs, and that I can't do everything. So I think my biggest tip would be finding those things that you're passionate about. For me, that was service, international travel, and research. Finding those things that you're passionate about and really honing those specific passions and interests in, because those will eventually branch out to other different opportunities, other different things that you do beyond the classroom. So I would definitely say find that passion first. And of course, it might take some trial and error, and then go from there into different programs and opportunities that Florida State offers, because there are plenty to get involved in.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what Arria said, I would definitely agree with what you said about finding passions and trying different things in order to diversify yourself in your undergraduate career. Specifically for me, I would say just make sure you're taking time for yourself, because I burnt myself out really bad, like my junior year, where, I was depressed and things like that. And that's when I realized, you have to take that time for yourself in order to be able to just succeed in life in general, forget about undergraduate, but I think it's very applicable to your undergraduate studies. So I would just say, just take that time for yourself in order to do the things that you enjoy, whether that be going to the gym, playing intramurals, going on hikes in Tallahassee, or, doing, anything of the sort. But just keep that in mind when you are thinking about the future, and making sure that your mental health comes first.
Yeah, absolutely. Following off of what Adrian said there, making the most out of college experience is different for every individual student. I guess my top tip based on my experience would be to just say yes. If something comes along, if maybe it's outside of your comfort zone or you're not entirely familiar with it, but it's something that you're interested in, take a shot at it. You can always quit if something doesn't align with your interests, or if you get into something and you decide, no, actually, this isn't for me. I don't think I would be where I was today if I didn't take a just say yes moment, because when the opportunity for Europe came around, I had no idea what it was. I was in the first class, nobody knew what it was except Joe O'Shea probably at that time, but I saw it sounded fun, it sounded interesting, so I jumped in, and that led me to a myriad of different things that opened up loads of different doors and led me to everything that I've done in life. But my other top tip, I guess, would be, if there is something that you're interested in and it's not immediately apparent to you, ask someone. Like Arria said, there's so much going on at Florida State. There's almost definitely something for you and for what you're interested in doing. It just might take a bit of exploration and digging to find it. So yeah, make connections and ask around. And that's how I would make the most out of it.
So you guys are basically said everything that I would have to say for undergraduate tips. I would also include that just being okay with exploring. Like at FSU, like I said, I came in, I thought I wanted to go to med school, but going into the Europe program, as well as doing the Global Scholars Program and seeing what else is out there in the world, you're able to figure out what other passions you may have that wasn't tapped before. So just being able and okay with exploring, figuring out what your passions are. And then like Michelle said, just talking to people. Sometimes I'll just go sit in Joe Shea's office and talk to him. Or sometimes I'll just go across and talk to Latica to figure out what I wanted to do, who I needed to talk to. And then also when you're in Europe or whatever program that you decide to be in, because there's also different programs like Garden and Gold Scholars, which is very good with community service activities, if you wanted to get into that. So you should just be okay with talking to people who are in the correct place. Or maybe they're not in the correct place. You just need someone to talk to. Like, that's so okay too, because undergrad is tough. And then when you get out of undergrad, it gets worse, honestly. So, but it'll get better at some point. But yes, just be okay with talking to people, making those connections, like Michelle said, being able to find your passion, and yeah, just exploring, because everything's out there. You just have to find it.
So you said two things that actually parallel with two of the questions pre-submitted. So I'm going to start with one because somebody was concerned about, do they have the right major? So do any of y'all have advice on how your careers might mirror your major or how they do not? And did your major fully contribute to where you are now? And any one of you can just jump in.
I'll take a quick jab. Oh, Michelle, by all means.
No, Arria, go ahead.
No,
Oh, okay, she's muted, so I will go ahead and jump in here then. My major does not at all match up with my career. And at the point in time that I was studying, I absolutely thought that my major was exactly what I was going to do in life. So I had a double major in English literature and history with a minor in art history. And as I already shared, I went on to pursue a master's in medieval history. My plan was to get my PhD, be a medieval historian, and that was the life goal. But it's not always about being in the right major or having your entire career mapped out at the age of 22. I mean, my major led me into a number of things that ultimately did contribute to my career trajectory, even though it's not directly related to my major. I loved history. I love medieval history. I really enjoyed everything that I studied at Florida State. I had some incredible professors, and it was really wonderful educational experience, but it was the things that I did outside of my major, working with the Office of National Fellowships and getting kind of the opportunity to work in student support and as a mentor to students, that led me ultimately to where I am now. You can always change your major. Well, not always, like if you're a senior, that's probably problematic, like you're a bit too far gone. But you can always take time to explore things. I mean, I know one friend that I had at Florida State ended up studying for 6 years because he changed his major kind of halfway through because he decided that it wasn't actually right for him and it wasn't what he wanted to line up with. And now I'm pretty sure he's on an MD PhD program because he figured it out, but got there a bit late. You can always make a change if you find something that suits you better, but every part of it is a strong learning experience, and you might find something as part of your educational experience within your major that leads you to a career that's completely disassociated from what it was that you studied, but what you studied helped get you there. I'm not sure I answered that question well, but that has been my experience of having a degree that in no way reflects what I'm actually doing with my career.
I kind of bounce off of a little bit what Michelle says. I think that your major unlocks resources. It unlocks faculty and staff that can help you find a specific path or career interest that you have. It also unlocks classes and books and literature that help you kind of have a more fine-tuned look at a specific subject. At the same time, you aren't just limited to that major. You are definitely, if you're continuing on to graduate school or continuing on to work, you don't necessarily have to find a path that aligns with that specific subset. Because, for example, I majored in anthropology. What I'm doing now, and when I originally came out of undergrad, I started at this organization. I work at an educational nonprofit, and I started as a COVID-19 recovery AmeriCorps member. And of course, it's the first ever position of its kind because COVID is a novel virus. And my anthropology degree did help me. It did help me with my research skills, analytical skills I needed for this position. It did help me when it came to understanding and empathizing with different people groups and different lived experiences. But I did not necessarily have the title of an anthropologist, and I did not need that title in order to complete my job or do the tasks that were expected of me. So I definitely think, yes, your major is important, but remember, grad school, you do not have to go on this linear path. You don't have to go for the same degree in grad school. You can also do something else. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that it helps you with building a backbone in academia, but it doesn't limit you in that way.
Adrian or Brianna, did you have any things like that?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So for me, as I majored in exercise physiology and I have a degree in that. And I think I'm stubborn and I will use that degree at some point in terms of like how it informs my research. I used to think I was interested in just a particular type of disease, and kind of my experiences now with my degree have just kind of shifted me in the sense that I want to do like immunometabolism and things involved in exercise physiology and human research. But currently I'm not doing much with my degree. And I think you'll find that more often than not, most people are not doing, like I'm an exercise physiologist. I graduated with a degree in exercise physiology and now I'm an exercise physiologist. I would say that you don't find that with a lot of people, but I think you gain a lot of skills, like everyone else is saying, that inform you later in life to do things.
And I will have to agree with that. So at FSU, I majored in biological sciences. Then in my master's program, the bridge to doctorate program, I got a master's also in biology, but I did not really do biological science. I did more physics work. And then now in my PhD program, I'm doing biology and physics. So I basically grouped together my past experiences to do the thing that I want to do, to study what I want to study. And so I do have all of those skills in biology. I have all of those skills in physics, but I would say that you don't have to stay in one lane. Like I'm still in science, but I use different model organisms. Actually, I don't even use organisms anymore. I work with cells. I never worked with cells before. So like everything is different and you don't have to stay in the same lane. If you want, I know someone who was in science, but now they're more so in history and they're looking at science history. So, well, the history of science throughout the like ages, which is really cool. But yeah, I agree. You don't necessarily stay in your major, whatever major you choose at FSU, you don't stay in that major. You don't have to. It's not required. It's just giving you those opportunities, those doors to open up resources like Arria said.
That's great advice. And it's been so long since I was an undergraduate student, I almost forgot that my major was recreation sport management, which I am not doing. But that is great advice. And this is a great question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because I think this is a very important question. If someone's on the fence about applying for graduate school, what would you say to convince them to apply? Any of you can jump in.
I'll go ahead and take that on. As somebody who's worked in kind of student advising and student recruitment and higher education, I would not convince you. If you're on the fence, that means that perhaps your heart's not entirely in it, or the subject that you're looking at for graduate school isn't really your passion. I would absolutely advise any student against taking that step forward into graduate school unless you're 100% sure, mostly because it is an intensive environment and it is quite a large monetary and time commitment as well. So unless you're really, really sure that you want to take on that degree and the subject is something that you want to study for whatever length of time it is. So I did my master's in the UK, so it was only 1 year, but if you're doing it in the States, it's a 2-year commitment. And obviously, like the level of intensity across graduate programs varies. It is a completely different experience to undergrad, and you'll be doing a lot more independent learning and work. So unless you're really, really set on it, if you're firmly on the fence, maybe take some more time, do a bit more research, have a look into other comparable programs or just a bit of a dig on other things that you might be interested in. And you might come to the conclusion that you want to do a completely different program or that you don't want to go to graduate school at all. And absolutely every decision is completely valid.
I would have to agree with that. Whenever I have a mentee who asks me, why did I apply to grad school, or how did I come up to the conclusion that I wanted to apply to grad school, I would always just say I had to explore a lot. I did a lot of research. I looked into a lot of schools. As I said, I didn't go into the same basically science. So I had to figure out what I want to do. And if you're on the fence, that kind of sort of means that you're not sure what you want to do. And so in that case, you should probably go ahead and explore. You could do a master's program if you want to, which is technically grad school, but a PhD program, honestly, a PhD program and a master's program, their levels of intensity are so different. It's like mind-blowing. But maybe you want to take a gap year. A gap year is also very fine. And then you can figure out if you want to go into grad school or not. There's a lot of students who are in grad school who have actually taken multiple gap years, or they just worked so that they can get the experience that they wanted, so they can know for sure if they want to go into grad school. But I would never convince anyone to go into grad school. Maybe help, like if you wrote an essay, I'll look at your essay and I'll give you some tips about what they look for, but I would not advise people to just go into grad school because they think they want to go. You need to know if you want to be there.
Piggybacking off of what Brianna said, I'm currently in my gap years. It's not that I didn't have the stats to apply or anything like that. Well, I felt like I didn't have the research experience necessary now looking back on it. But regardless, I wasn't really sure if I just wanted to go to medical school or get an MD PhD. And that is like a really big decision, right? Because the MD PhD is a 7+ year commitment. I mean, they are paid for, but it's like a lot of time of your life. And med school puts you in all this debt that you hopefully will pay back. So I wouldn't really convince anybody to apply. My suggestion would be to find that experience necessary in order for you to sit there and be like, yes, this is what I want to do for X amount of time. And I don't think that waiting is a problem because you have so much time in your life. And, that's something maybe you'll come to realize later. But it's definitely, medical school average age of matriculant is 24. For MD PhDs, it's 26. I don't know for like PhD and other, graduate programs, but people are starting to matriculate later because they're taking time off. And it's also nice to just have time off of school. My personal opinion, like you've been in school from like when you can start going to school till when you graduate generally. So it's nice to just kind of have that time off of school to do other things.
Also, as a person currently in I like to call it my 2-year gap year, which will probably extend to many, many more years. I knew that after undergrad, I didn't want to go to grad school right away. I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I had the stats and I had the qualifications to apply to grad school. Maybe I would have got into one, who knows? But I knew that I wanted a break from academia. And it's kind of ironic saying that because I work for an education nonprofit that works with colleges and universities, but I don't work within those schools. I work kind of behind the scenes. And I wanted that experience. I wanted to see something from a different lens, a different angle. I wanted more work experience. I wanted experience of being in a nonprofit because that's one of my aspirations for a career in the future, along with, of course, I'm interested in being a professor specifically in medical anthropology. So I wanted more research experience on the side of medicine and on the side of health. So it kind of drew me to where I am today. And I think it's completely fine to be honest with yourself and take that break. Grad school will be there unless one day out of nowhere, poof, all the grad school programs has disappeared. It will be there. And with the more time that you take for yourself and the skills that you build, the more of you'll become a more strong and multidisciplinary applicant that shows that you have these skills not only in the classroom, but beyond it. So I am definitely a huge advocate for taking that time if you can for yourself and to grow from that.
Great advice. And this next one is also kind of specific. It seems like there's a lot of individuals who are junior and senior in there trying to question what's the next step. So this question is, as a junior in undergrad, how early do you recommend beginning preparing for that next experience, whether it's educational or experiential after graduation?
I will take this one really quickly because I do have to hop off soon, so I'm so sorry. But for me, so initially when I came back into my senior year, I applied to the U.S. Peace Corps. I got invited to serve with Peace Corps Mongolia, and that would have been my path I would have taken if COVID-19 didn't happen. And I would say that it really depends on what you're deciding to do. For example, grad school applications, they do need at least a year and a half in advance. For things like Peace Corps, it is also a year-long application process. Things like AmeriCorps, for example, which is the domestic version of Peace Corps, you're doing nonprofit work or other related works, that can take anywhere from a few months to 6 months. So it really depends on what you're planning to do. But I would say, give yourself a running list, give yourself some different options for yourself that you genuinely want to do, not just things you think you have to do. And really just kind of go from there. Whether that's teaching English abroad, whether that is applying for a domestic grad school, whether that is working at an office in your hometown, give yourself some time and really kind of jot down those pros and cons before pursuing it further. And thank you for having me. I hope everything else goes well, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.
Bye, Arria. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, basically as soon as possible as like, you know what you're doing, because the longer you have to prepare for something, hypothetically, you know, the better that application will be. And again, it just depends on what you want to do. So graduate applications are typically a year long. So probably about that time would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'll jump in and kind of echo off of what Arria said. If you do kind of have a list and you're looking forward to what you want to do, as soon as possible, start having those conversations, especially with relevant offices if you need assistance, particularly from my perspective, thinking of the Office of National Fellowships, working for the Marshall Scholars Program now, we're looking forward to the interviews and appointments for the 2022 cohort of Marshall Scholars next month. So that would be right at the beginning of kind of your senior year if you're planning on applying. So you'll probably be looking at doing the application, working on it over the summer. Make sure that you're getting your drafts done and really working through to present the best application process possible. So yeah, as soon as you have an idea of what you're doing, start working on it, start having the appropriate conversations that you need to with support.
And I definitely agree with that. Also, another thought is that, especially for graduate school, a lot of these things cost money. So you have to, for the tests, at least the GRE, it costs maybe $200 something. Luckily, if you're a first gen student or if you're a minority student, a lot of times they waive those fees. But for graduate school applications, each application costs money. I think for medical school, there is one lump sum, and then you would just put all your applications into that program. But each graduate school, each program, they have their own application that costs money. The test that you need to go to grad school, that costs money. If you were thinking about doing something abroad or moving to a new city that is not Tallahassee, basically, you would need to save up so that you can get over there. I know, like when I moved to Tennessee and when I moved to up here to Baltimore, at least I had to pay it up front, but I did get reimbursed for those travel costs. But sometimes new jobs, new schools, they don't pay for that. So just also, once you figure out what you want to do, start saving up so that you can pay for basically where you want to be in your next stage in life.
Thank you all. A couple other questions. I know earlier some of the answers were talking about passions, and somebody just kind of wanted to know, and all of you have kind of touched on this a little bit through your work that you did in undergraduate research and other student activities, but what exactly, can you share any tips on really how to find your passion or how to like not look so hard, it'll just come to you, but any advice on not worrying about it or working to find it, that passion? That one made you think.
Yeah, that one did make me think a bit, because I don't have any tips on how to search and find your passion. My passion definitely found me. When I was at Florida State, I sought out like every opportunity that I possibly could within the field that I was studying, within history. And I was incredibly passionate about that. But in terms of long-term goals and career, I kind of stumbled into what I'm truly passionate about, and that's kind of mentorship and student support, and that only came about by having really incredible mentors at Florida State. So I mean, I would say explore as much as possible. I know Brianna said that a couple of times, and when we keep circling back to that, but get involved with as much as possible, explore any opportunity or any subject that you do have interest in, and then just kind of, as cliche as it sounds, follow your heart where it takes you, and your passion will probably find you more so than you finding it.
Yeah, I agree with what Michelle said. At least for me and my passions, like it started in high school because I was like sick and overweight, and then like I found all this information on nutrition and exercise, and I started doing that, and that's kind of why I'm passionate about exercise and nutrition because I have seen like personally firsthand like what it can do for somebody. And then when I got into undergraduate, I just kind of started doing things because I wasn't really sure what exactly I wanted to do to support, you know, my medical school journey, right? Because you have to do extracurriculars and things, but I also am very aware of the fact that I don't talk well about things I don't like to do. So I just joined a bunch of things and tried things until I found activities that I really enjoyed doing and I can like sit here and talk to you about passionately.
So yeah, I agree with basically everything. So yeah, you have to explore to figure out your passion. A lot of times it's not a straight path to what your passion is. You'll find different passions along the way. And I also think it's really important in undergrad or whatever stage you end up after undergrad is to find a passion outside of schooling or the job that you have, just so that you can stay in the correct mental state to always be basically where you want to be in life with that passion. So like up here, I'm passionate about biophysics. I look at membrane receptor proteins in different diseases. That's my passion, and that's a great passion. But I also really like to exercise and like I like to box and stuff. So that's my other passion. And so then you just have all these different passions. And I think that helps you grow as a person so that you're not always focused on the science or on whatever you're studying. You kind of sort of need to have something, another outlet, another passion besides what your work is, just so you can stay sane yourself. Because if you're just always going, always in school, always thinking about your career or your major, it might get a little tough because outside of FSU, in the real world with like graduate school and working and whatnot, there are other things besides the science in my field. There's other things besides the science. So yeah, just exploring and finding your passion. FSU has lots of different places too where you can do that, different people you can talk to, different programs. And then when you get outside of FSU, there's also many different things you can look at too.
Thank you. And this one is one that I think is important since all of you were involved in undergraduate research. If somebody is nervous about the communication piece or making sure they find the right research mentor or they find the right research interest, what advice would you give on how to appropriately do that? And if they get involved in undergraduate research opportunity program, I know that there will be assistance there, but any advice that you'd give to a student who wants to get involved with undergraduate research, but is a little nervous about finding the right subject and interest?
I think one of the best things you could do, at least at FSU, is go to the different symposiums, because at the different symposiums, there's always so many different research topics. There's so many different people that you can talk to so that you can begin to figure out and create a list of what you might be interested in. And then from there, at the different symposiums, you can even go, I don't know if Florida's crazy. Florida does everything. So there's definitely in-person conferences going on. So if you want to go to an in-person conference, that's great too. You can start networking and figuring out what you are really interested in, passionate about. And then from there, I think you just have to take a leap and start reaching out to those professors who have those interests that you have. Even if they don't have the direct interest, you can kind of sort of collaborate. So I know at least in graduate school it's possible. I'm quite sure it's possible in undergrad. You can have co-advisors that can put your different interests together. And as long as you talk to them and you're able to, you don't even have to be able to have a well fleshed out thought. That's what an advisor is for. They're there to help you flesh out those thoughts that you have. As long as you are comfortable and able to talk to someone, then you can start moving in the direction that you want to. But I think that starting off at like different symposiums that FSU has or the CRE has, that you can start beginning to figure things out.
Yeah, I would go ahead and add that a lot of you have probably been taught by TAs or are currently being taught by TAs. And those tend to be grad students who do research, and how they pay their grad school is through teaching. I think they're a really good resource to talk to just about maybe if you're interested in whatever type of subject they teach, to see what type of research they're doing. And I think a graduate student in particular, and I'm sure Brianna can, agree with me or expand on this, is a good resource to find out the environment of the lab and kind of the mentoring style of the PI, because what matters at the end of the day isn't necessarily the research that you're doing as a PhD student or as an undergrad. It's more how you're trained and how you're mentored in order to later on be able to go on and succeed. Right. So that's kind of my advice.
And I'll just kind of echo some of those sentiments. It's all about having conversations with the right people or with the wrong people who direct you to the right people. I would say my answer to the question is on the call with us right now, Latica. I would go talk to the undergraduate research office or whatever it is called at this point. I graduated so long ago. They know their stuff, and unless things have vastly changed, they'll get you in contact with students who are actively pursuing research that might line up with your interests or be able to direct you in the right path. I know when I was there, we had undergraduate research ambassadors. And if they're in your field, they definitely know graduate students that you can talk to, professors that you can talk to. So like everything that I think I've said today, CRE. Thanks, Amy. It's all about having conversations. If you're not sure where to start, just start a conversation.
It's great. And we just got an awesome question submitted in the chat privately. What are some tips on applying for an internship for the first time, where it's the cycle of they want the experience, but do they have to have the experience?
I would go talk to the Office of National Fellowships. That is I think Josh has since moved, but Josh was like the best person I could have ever spoken to in my life. And the ONF was so integral in me, like at least helping me write the essays, and I would say successfully getting into, a few different internships. And I think they could also help you figure out, do you actually need the internship? I think if you want to go to grad school, I would say that they are very helpful, because as an undergraduate, you're not doing 40 hours of research a week generally. But an internship would allow you that space of 2 to 3 months, however long they are, in order to, kind of dive into what it's like to work a 9-to-5 research style, or maybe not 9 to 5, but 40 hours a week of research.
Yeah, Adrian took mine, so I'm just going to piggyback on that and say ONF is the best. And indeed, the entire HSF building, if you need help with kind of anything, getting involved with research, internships, fellowships, scholarships, the honors program, it's that beautiful building with the Chick-fil-A in it. Oh, please tell me there's still a Chick-fil-A. Okay.
Yes, there is.
I don't have much to add to that. I would say, I spent a lot of time in that building. So just knowing the people, and they are so great with all the applications possible. I personally didn't do any internships in undergrad, like at FSU, but I know plenty of people who did, and they went directly to that building and talked to people and were able to get all of their questions answered. And it also helped them figure out what internships would be best for them, because not every internship will get you into the door that you want to go into. So just go to the building. You'll find the right people to talk to.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add something in terms of like the internship. So just to give you like an example. So my internship directly led to my research assistant job, following the internship. So for those of you planning to take a gap year and like thinking like, what am I going to do? Am I going to apply to a prep program, or am I going to, want a job? A research assistant is, a viable job for those of you wanting to pursue PhDs or even going to medical school. And that's one way to like get your foot in the door somewhere.
Yeah, and I think Brianna had earlier said too about the Garnet and Gold Scholar Society. If you do that, part of that, one of the options for that is also an internship. So there's a lot of ways that it all interweaves together, but our whole building is a great resource for that. So you guys have talked a lot about everything that you did when you were here, but I always kind of like to ask this as one that kind of wraps it all up, is as you look back on your time at Florida State, what are the experiences, other than maybe just the academic ones, what experiences at all are musts for students before they leave? Because now that you all are gone, do you look back and you think, oh, I wish I would have done this? So do you have any experiences at Florida State that you just absolutely think students need to be involved in before they leave? You can take a second if you need to think about that. I love the side profile shots from all the alumni thinking in the distance. Or you can just say what your favorite memory was at Florida State too. Those are always fun.
So I would say, so for me, I was in a care program. So I'm a first generation student and whatnot. So I really loved going to the care building. Like if I wasn't in the CRE bothering Joe or Latica or Alicia or something, I was at the care building bothering all of those people. Just talking to people, I just really love making those connections, and I still have them. Like when I was there, the care director, he's now at University of Cincinnati, and I still talk to him, and that's really I don't know where Cincinnati is actually. I'm not that great with geography, but I think it's up here in the Northeast. So if I wanted to, like for Thanksgiving, he invited me to come over. So that would be like, I still have those connections. I think that would be something that everyone should do. Just start making those long lasting connections so that like when I go back to Tallahassee, I usually always go see my research advisor and Latica and Alicia. And then like, I just think that those are so great. And I also, as in programs, I would think that I feel like everyone should try to do an international program. So there's a lot of different programs that you can do. So like I did Global Scholars, but like what Arria was saying, she did Beyond Borders, I believe it was called. They went to Jamaica. So I went to South Africa. I also did the Gilman Scholars. So I went to Germany. And that really opened up my mind to basically the lives of everyone else who wasn't in the United States. And it was just a really great program. And then you can also get funding to do that. So you don't have to rely on just what you can pay for. If you can get a scholarship for one programs, at least the Global Scholars Program, I think that people should really apply to it because it is a really great opportunity that FSU has for students to take, besides networking and like talking to everyone in the care building or in the HSF.
Yeah, I'll jump in. In terms of must, I'm going to echo what Brianna said there. If you can study abroad, take the opportunity to study abroad or have some other kind of international experience, whether it's Global Scholars, doing research abroad, applying for a fellowship, or any other international experience. I think, having the ability to go abroad during your undergrad really opens up not just your mind, but a lot of different opportunities going forward. So that's definitely must on my list. Other than that, I would say take advantage of events at the university. Like make sure you get out the book once in a while and take advantage of the things that are on at FSU. I mean, just recently I was thinking back at how much I don't really football. I'm so grateful I went to so many football games because they were just like part of the that you about years on.
Coming back.
Okay.
That was so weird. We lost like the whole Florida State, I guess, Wi-Fi went out. So I apologize. Please continue. Did it go out for you too, Latica?
Yeah, it did. I thought it was just me and I disconnected from like Wi-Fi, but everything went out. Yeah.
Wow. So sorry about that, Michelle. But it was not you, it was us.
No worries at all. Completely lost my train of thought there. But I guess the other thing that I would say, you heard my whole spiel about football, so hopefully everybody got that because that was some really just top content. Get involved in at least one thing, whether it's on campus or off campus, that is not academic or not directly related to your course, something that you do a bit separately, that's something that you're really passionate about or something that you just really enjoy being a part of. So mine is like half academic still, but I was involved in leadership for Phi Eta Sigma, which is the undergraduate honor society on campus. And I just really loved being a part of that group of people and planning the social events and everything with that. And that's something that I look back on and think, wow, I'm really glad I was a part of that. So find that one kind of extracurricular thing that you just really, truly enjoy doing outside of your academics.
Yeah, for me, I don't think there's anything, just because I enjoy it doesn't mean everyone else will necessarily enjoy it. So my advice would just be to explore Tallahassee, which is something I don't think I really did until probably my senior year, which I guess was during COVID, but it was a lot of outside things. Because I think Tallahassee has a lot to offer in terms of doing things outside or just like cool places to eat. My recommendation is Fummy if you like Vietnamese soup, very good. And that's my shameless plug for that. But other than that, I think maybe my favorite experience at Florida State was defending my honors in the major, because that was really stressful and I was so happy to be done. And it just felt very rewarding. So
I love it. Thank you. And thank you all, even through the glitches there that happened for a minute. But I really appreciate you all joining us this week. It's been really fun to engage with alumni this week during homecoming. And so I'm glad that we were able to virtually bring you in, especially you, Michelle, since you're overseas. So we really appreciate it. And this was recorded today. So if there was anything that anybody wants to go back and watch or that they might have missed, I will send out the recording in a follow-up email so that you all can rewatch and get all of that wonderful information. I will also put the links to the websites of the offices and the programs that were referenced and mentioned today, so that you all will have a direct way to connect with that office and that program to get involved and to have the experiences like these wonderful alumni had. So thank you all again, and I hope everybody has a great week, and I appreciate you all coming. Bye.